The icy moon of Cal 7 hung silently in the shadow of its dying star, a frozen wasteland untouched by time. The human exploration vessel Aurora's Reach drifted above it, scanning the surface with cautious curiosity. Captain Rhea Callan stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes fixed on the holographic display showing strange structures scattered across the terrain below. They weren't natural. Those angular shapes jutting out of the ice were unmistakably artificial. "Looks like someone got tired of their vacation spot and left," joked Lieutenant Marcus Trent, trying to lighten the tense atmosphere. No one laughed. Everyone aboard knew that finding alien ruins was rare enough. But this felt different. Dr. Ilara Voss, the mission's lead xenobiologist, leaned closer to the screen, her breath fogging the glass slightly. "Those aren't ruins," she said softly, tracing a finger over one of the shapes. "They're intact. Too intact." Her voice carried both excitement and unease. She had spent years studying ancient civilizations, but nothing prepared her for what they were seeing now. The team suited up quickly, eager yet apprehensive, as they descended to the surface in a small shuttlecraft. As they landed near one of the larger structures, the silence outside was deafening. The airlock hissed open, and the cold hit them like a wall. Icicles clung to every surface, glinting faintly under the weak light of the distant sun. The structure before them loomed tall, its metallic exterior coated in frost. It looked almost alive, shimmering faintly as if breathing. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Commander Jax Reed, gripping his plasma rifle tightly. He scanned the area warily, though there wasn't much to see beyond endless white plains dotted with more of those odd buildings. Ilara ignored him, already moving toward the nearest building. Its door, or what appeared to be a door, slid open smoothly at her approach, revealing the dimly lit interior. Inside, rows upon rows of crystalline pods lined the walls, each glowing faintly with an inner light. Suspended within these pods were creatures unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Their bodies were translucent, almost ethereal, with delicate tendrils floating lazily in some kind of liquid. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed gently across their forms, as if they were dreaming. "What are they?" whispered Ensign Priya Patel, her voice trembling with awe. She reached out instinctively but stopped herself just short of touching one of the pods. "They're alive," Ilara replied, her tone hushed. She ran her scanner over the nearest pod, analyzing its contents. "In stasis, but alive. These beings, they've been here for centuries, maybe longer." Captain Callan stepped forward, her face grim. "Whoever built this place didn't plan on coming back. Look around. There's no sign of weapons, no defenses. Just these things, left behind like forgotten experiments." Ilara frowned, kneeling beside the pod. Something about the creatures stirred a deep sense of sorrow in her. They weren't monsters or threats. They were fragile, vulnerable. Whoever had abandoned them hadn't even bothered to wake them up or give them a chance to survive. "We can't just leave them here," she said firmly, standing up to face the others. "If we do, we're no better than whoever did this to them." The group exchanged uneasy glances. They all knew the risks of interfering with alien life, especially when so little was understood. But as Ilara stared into the glowing face of one of the suspended beings, she couldn't shake the feeling that leaving would mean failing, not just these creatures, but humanity itself. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Captain Callan sighed, rubbing her temples. "All right," she said finally. "But we proceed carefully. One wrong move, and we could end up regretting this decision for the rest of our lives." As the team began setting up equipment to study the pods further, none of them realized how profoundly their choice would change not only their own lives, but the fate of two species, and perhaps the galaxy itself. Back aboard the Aurora's Reach, the atmosphere was tense. The team had transported one of the crystalline pods to the ship's lab, its faint glow casting eerie shadows on the walls. Dr. Ilara Voss stood over it, her mind racing with questions. Who were these beings? Why had they been left in stasis? And most importantly, could they be awakened safely? "This is insane," muttered Commander Jax Reed, pacing behind her. "We don't even know what we're dealing with here. What if waking it up triggers some kind of, I don't know, alien self-destruct sequence?" Ilara didn't look up from her work. "If we don't try, we'll never know. Besides, whatever this creature is, it's not a weapon. Look at it." She gestured toward the pod. Inside, the translucent being floated peacefully, its bioluminescent patterns flickering like stars on a clear night. "It's fragile, vulnerable. Someone abandoned it here without a second thought. Doesn't that make you want to help?" Jax crossed his arms but said nothing. He wasn't convinced, but he also knew better than to argue with Ilara when she got like this. Determined, almost reckless in her pursuit of answers. The process of reviving the creature took hours. Using advanced medical equipment designed for interspecies biology, Ilara carefully adjusted the pod's internal environment, mimicking conditions that might coax the being out of stasis. Lieutenant Marcus Trent monitored the readings, calling out fluctuations as they occurred. Ensign Priya Patel recorded everything meticulously, her hands trembling slightly from excitement or nerves. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, something changed. The glowing patterns on the creature's body brightened, pulsing more rapidly. Its tendrils twitched, and then, slowly, its eyes opened, or at least what seemed to be eyes. They were soft orbs of shifting light, impossible to read but undeniably aware. "It's awake," Ilara whispered, barely able to contain her awe. She leaned closer, speaking gently. "Can you understand me? We're here to help." For a moment, there was no response. Then, the creature emitted a soft hum, vibrating through the air like music. Tiny bursts of light danced across its surface, forming intricate patterns that shifted and morphed. It wasn't speech, not human speech anyway, but it was communication. "It's trying to talk to us," Priya breathed, clutching her datapad tightly. Ilara nodded, focusing intently. "Let's see if we can learn its language." She activated a neural interface device, a piece of technology meant to bridge gaps between species by translating brainwave patterns into comprehensible signals. Slowly, fragmented images began appearing on the screen. A vast city bathed in golden light, towering machines humming with energy, faces that looked like the creature itself smiling warmly. But then came darker visions, destruction, chaos, and finally, the cold emptiness of the icy moon where they now stood. They were betrayed, Ilara murmured, tears welling in her eyes. Their own people turned their backs on them. The creature, now officially named Lior by the crew, seemed to sense their understanding. Its lights pulsed brighter, and it reached out a tendril toward Ilara. She hesitated for only a second before placing her hand against the glass of the containment unit. Lior mirrored the gesture, pressing its appendage to hers on the other side. "Do you think it knows we're not like the ones who left it?" Priya asked quietly. "I think it does," Ilara replied. "And I think it trusts us." As the hours passed, the crew worked tirelessly to establish basic communication with Lior. Though progress was slow, every small success filled them with hope. For the first time since discovering the colony, they felt they were doing something truly meaningful, not just exploring, but connecting. But not everyone shared their optimism. In the corner of the lab, Captain Callan watched silently, her expression unreadable. She couldn't shake the feeling that awakening Lior was only the beginning, and that the consequences of their actions might stretch far beyond anything they could imagine. Days turned into weeks as the crew of the Aurora's Reach worked tirelessly to understand Lior and its species. Through painstaking efforts, Dr. Ilara Voss and her team began piecing together fragments of Lior's memories using the neural interface device. Each session revealed more about the mysterious beings, whom they now called the Valeth. But with every revelation came a growing sense of unease. The images Lior shared painted a haunting picture. The Valeth had once thrived as engineers in a vast interstellar empire, their delicate forms belying an incredible mastery over energy manipulation. They built towering cities filled with shimmering structures powered by light itself, creating wonders that even humanity's brightest minds would struggle to replicate. Yet, despite their brilliance, the Vailith were not rulers, they were servants. They weren't just workers, Ilara explained during one debriefing, her voice heavy with emotion. They were tools. Their creators used them to build entire civilizations, but when the empire collapsed under its own greed and corruption, the Vailith became expendable. The final moments of the empire's fall played out vividly in Lyre's fragmented memories. Chaos erupted across the stars as factions turned on each other, destroying everything in their path. Amidst the destruction, the Vailith were rounded up and exiled to the icy moon of Cal 7, a barren wasteland far from any hope of survival. Before entering stasis, they recorded desperate messages pleading for help, scattering crystalline pods across the surface like beacons. It was a gamble, a last-ditch effort to ensure their story wouldn't die with them. What kind of monsters could do this? Ensign Priya Patil asked, her hands trembling as she reviewed the data logs. How could anyone leave such peaceful creatures to perish? Captain Rhea Callan leaned back in her chair, her face grim. Monsters who see others as less than themselves, she said quietly. History repeats itself, doesn't it? We've done the same thing on Earth, abandoning those we deemed unworthy or inconvenient. Ilara nodded, her heart aching for the Vailith. She couldn't help but feel a deep connection to Lyre, whose trust in humanity grew stronger with each passing day. Despite the betrayal it had endured, Lyre showed no signs of bitterness or anger. Instead, it radiated gratitude, its bioluminescent patterns glowing warmly whenever the humans approached. But not everyone aboard the ship shared Ilara's compassion. Commander Jax Reed remained skeptical, his military instincts screaming caution. We're getting too close to this, he warned during a private meeting with the captain. Every time we interact with Lyre, we risk exposing ourselves to something we don't fully understand. What if these memories are incomplete? What if there's more to the Vailith than meets the eye? Callan sighed, rubbing her temples. I hear you, Jax, but we can't ignore what we found here. These creatures didn't deserve what happened to them. If we walk away now, aren't we just repeating the same cycle of abandonment? Reed clenched his jaw, but didn't argue further. He knew the captain was right, but that didn't make him any less uneasy. Meanwhile, Ilara continued her work, determined to uncover the full truth. With Lyre's guidance, she discovered faint traces of residual energy within the pods, evidence that the Vailith had attempted to send distress signals into space before succumbing to stasis. The realization sent chills down her spine. For centuries, they had waited in silence, clinging to the faintest hope that someone, somewhere, would find them. One evening, as Ilara sat alone in the lab watching Lyre's gentle glow, she whispered, "You trusted us, and I promise we won't let you down." Lyre responded with a soft hum, its lights flickering in what seemed like appreciation. But deep down, Ilara couldn't shake the feeling that their discovery was only the beginning, and that the true challenge lay ahead. As more Vailith were awakened from their pods, the Aurora's reach became a hub of activity. The once silent lab now buzzed with life. Glowing patterns danced across the walls as the delicate beings communicated through bursts of light and sound. Each awakening brought new challenges, but also moments of profound connection. For Dr. Ilara Voss and her team, it was both exhilarating and exhausting. Lyre had taken on the role of mediator between the humans and its fellow Vailith. Its trust in humanity seemed contagious, helping ease the fears of the newly awakened creatures. At first, many of them were disoriented, their glowing bodies dimmed by confusion and fear. But with Lyre's guidance and Ilara's patient reassurance, they began to adapt. Slowly, they started mimicking human gestures, tilting their heads curiously when spoken to or reaching out tendrils in tentative greetings. "They're learning," Priya Patel said one day, her voice filled with wonder as she watched a group of Vailith interact with holographic displays set up for communication. "It's like they're absorbing everything around them." Ilara smiled faintly, though her mind was racing. While the Valeth adapted quickly, tensions aboard the ship were rising. Not everyone shared her enthusiasm for reviving all the pods. Commander Jax Reed voiced his concerns during a heated meeting in the command center. "We can't keep this up," he argued, slamming his fist on the table. "Every pod we open is another risk. We don't know how many there are down there, or if they'll all react the same way. What happens if one of them turns hostile? Or worse, what if something goes wrong and we end up killing them?" Captain Rhea Callan listened quietly, her expression unreadable. She understood Reed's concerns, but she also saw the bigger picture. Turning to Ilara, she asked, "Do you believe we're doing the right thing?" Ilara hesitated only briefly before nodding. Yes, these beings were abandoned, not because they were dangerous, but because they were vulnerable. They trusted us enough to wake them up, and now it's our responsibility to help them rebuild. If we stop halfway, we're no better than those who left them here. Callan nodded slowly. "Then we continue. For now. But we proceed carefully." The decision didn't sit well with everyone. Some crew members muttered about recklessness under their breath, while others openly questioned whether humanity should interfere at all. Yet, amidst the dissent, something remarkable began to unfold. The Valeth started sharing pieces of their culture with the humans. Through gestures, sounds, and even art, they revealed glimpses of their world before exile. One of the most captivating discoveries was their unique form of creativity, using energy fields to manipulate light and sound into intricate patterns. It wasn't just functional, it was beautiful. Entire walls of the lab shimmered with dazzling displays as the Valeth demonstrated their abilities, leaving the humans awestruck. "It's like they're painting with light," Marcus Trent murmured, watching as Lior created a swirling constellation of colors that seemed to tell a story. "They're artists." Ilara nodded, her eyes shining with admiration. "And survivors. Everything they do carries meaning. Even their art reflects their resilience." Over time, the bond between the two species deepened. Humans taught the Valeth basic concepts of language and mathematics, while the Valeth introduced the crew to entirely new ways of thinking. Together, they began collaborating on small projects, blending human ingenuity with Valeth energy manipulation. Simple tasks, like repairing equipment or improving power efficiency, became opportunities for mutual growth. But not everyone was convinced by these developments. In private conversations, some crew members expressed doubts about how long they could sustain such an effort. Resources were limited, and the icy moon offered little in terms of support. Still, every time someone suggested slowing down, Ilara would remind them of the stakes. "These beings trusted us when no one else did," she said firmly. "If we turn our backs on them now, what does that say about us?" Her words resonated with many, but not all. As the colony grew, so did the weight of responsibility. The question lingered in the air. Could humanity truly live up to the hope the Valeth had placed in them? For now, the answer remained uncertain, but the journey had only begun. Just as the humans and Valeth began to settle into a fragile rhythm of cooperation, their fragile peace was shattered by an ominous shadow looming in the sky. A massive spacecraft emerged from the void, its sleek design radiating power and menace. The ship dwarfed the Aurora's reach, its surface glinting with weapon systems that could annihilate the tiny human vessel in seconds. "Identify yourself." Captain Rhea Callan barked into the comm system, her voice steady despite the knot tightening in her stomach. The response came quickly, a cold, mechanical voice laced with authority. "This is the Imperial vessel Ecliptor. You are trespassing on restricted territory. Stand down immediately." The crew froze. Ilara instinctively moved closer to Lear, who had dimmed slightly, its glowing patterns flickering nervously. She didn't need the neural interface to understand what it felt. Fear, pure, unrelenting fear. Commander Jax Reed clenched his fists, glaring at the viewscreen showing the imposing ship. "Restricted. This moon is in the middle of nowhere. They can't seriously claim this rock." "They can, and they will," Callan replied grimly. Turning back to the comm, she responded cautiously. We are explorers from Earth. We discovered this site and found survivors. Beings left behind in stasis. We're helping them rebuild. There was a long pause before the reply came, colder than before. The Valeth belong to the Empire. Return them, or face consequences. Ilara's heart sank. She turned to Callan, her eyes pleading. We can't hand them over. These are the same people who abandoned them here to die. Callan nodded but knew they couldn't fight. Not directly. The Ecliptor was armed to the teeth, while the Aurora's Reach was a research vessel, not built for combat. Still, surrender wasn't an option either. Not after everything they'd done to help the Valeth. We need a plan, Callan said firmly, gathering her senior staff in the command center. Jax, prep defensive maneuvers. Priya, monitor their communications for weaknesses. Marcus, coordinate with engineering to reinforce shields. And Ilara, she hesitated, looking at the xenobiologist. Talk to the Valeth. See if they have any ideas. Ilara hurried to the lab, where Lyre and several other Valeth waited anxiously. Their bioluminescent patterns pulsed erratically, reflecting their panic. Taking a deep breath, Ilara knelt beside Lyre, placing a reassuring hand near its containment unit. We won't let them take you, she promised. But we need your help. Do you know anything about their technology? Anything we can use against them? Lyre's lights flickered thoughtfully before it extended a tendril toward one of the consoles. It began manipulating the energy fields around it, creating intricate patterns that shimmered across the room. Ilara watched closely, realizing what it was suggesting. They could use the Valeth's natural ability to disrupt energy systems. It's risky, she told Callan later, explaining Lyre's idea. But if we time it right, the Valeth might be able to disable the Ecliptor's weapons temporarily. That would give us a chance to strike back, or at least buy time. Callan nodded, her jaw set. Then let's do it. Everyone, listen up. We're going to hit them hard and fast. Once the Valeth disables their weapons, we'll launch decoy drones to draw fire. Meanwhile, small teams will board the Ecliptor to sabotage critical systems. This isn't just our fight anymore, it's theirs too. As the plan unfolded, the tension aboard the Aurora's Reach was palpable. For the first time, the Valeth took an active role in their own survival. Their glowing forms hummed with determination as they prepared to confront the very empire that had betrayed them centuries ago. When the moment came, Lyre led the charge, its tendrils glowing brighter than ever. As the Valeth unleashed their energy manipulation, the Ecliptor's weapons faltered, giving the humans their opening. The battle was fierce, but for the first time, the Valeth weren't victims. They were fighters, standing shoulder to shoulder with humanity. And though the cost would be high, one thing was certain: the Empire wouldn't forget this rebellion. The plan was risky, but desperation had forged an unshakable bond between the humans and the Valeth. As the Ecliptor loomed above them, its weapons temporarily disabled by the Valeth's energy manipulation, the crew of the Aurora's Reach sprang into action. Decoy drones launched from the ship, streaking across the void like fireflies, drawing the enemy's attention. And fire, away from the real operation. Now, Captain Rhea Callan shouted over the comm system. Small teams of humans and Valeth boarded sleek assault shuttles, their mission clear: infiltrate the Ecliptor and sabotage its critical systems. Each shuttle carried a mix of skills: engineers to disable machinery, soldiers to hold off resistance, and Valeth whose unique abilities could manipulate the ship's internal energy grids. Ilara Voss stayed behind on the Aurora's Reach, her heart pounding as she monitored the feeds from the teams. She wanted to join them, to fight alongside Lyre, but her expertise was needed coordinating efforts from the lab. Be safe, she whispered, watching Lyre step onto one of the shuttles, its glowing form steadied despite the chaos around it. The infiltration wasn't easy. The Ecliptor's corridors were labyrinthine, filled with automated defenses and armed guards who quickly realized they were under attack. Gunfire echoed through the metallic halls as the human soldiers exchanged fire with Imperial troops, while the Valith worked silently, their tendrils weaving through control panels to disrupt power flows. In one particularly intense moment, Commander Jax Reed found himself pinned down behind a console, his rifle overheating. Beside him, a Valith named Avon pulsed brightly, creating a shimmering barrier of light that deflected incoming plasma bolts. "Thanks for the assist," Reed muttered, reloading his weapon. Avon didn't respond verbally but hummed softly, its glow flickering in what seemed like acknowledgement. Meanwhile, another team led by Lieutenant Marcus Trent reached the engine core. The massive chamber hummed with raw energy, powering the entire ship. Using schematics provided by the Valith, who had once served the Empire, Trent planted explosives at key junctions. "This is going to hurt them bad," he said grimly, setting the timer. "Let's move." Back on the Aurora's reach, Priya Patel worked frantically to jam the Ecliptor's communications, preventing reinforcements from being called. Her fingers flew across the console as sweat dripped down her face. Almost there. Almost. Finally, the signal cut off, leaving the Imperial forces isolated. On board the Ecliptor, Leor played a crucial role. Its bioluminescent patterns pulsed rapidly, interfacing directly with the ship's central AI. For a terrifying moment, alarms blared as the AI detected the intrusion. But then everything went silent. Lights dimmed, gravity fluctuated, and the entire vessel seemed to groan under the strain. Leor had overloaded the system, buying precious seconds for the sabotage teams. When the explosives detonated, the shockwave rippled through the ship. The Ecliptor staggered, its weapons offline and engines crippled. Realizing they were outmatched, the Imperial commander issued a retreat order, their once mighty vessel limping away from the icy moon. As the dust settled, the survivors gathered back aboard the Aurora's reach. Exhausted but triumphant, they embraced one another, or, in the case of the Valith, shared glowing pulses of gratitude. Captain Callan stood before the group, her voice filled with pride. "Today we proved something important, not just to ourselves, but to the galaxy. Humanity and the Valith are stronger together than apart, and anyone who doubts that will have to answer to us." Leor floated near Ilara, its light soft and warm. It reached out a tendril, brushing against her hand. In that moment, she knew this victory wasn't just about survival, it was about unity. Together, they had faced an overwhelming force and won. But deep down, they'd all understood. The Empire wouldn't forget. This battle was only the beginning. And yet, for now, hope burned brighter than ever. The victory over the Ecliptor came at a heavy cost. As the crew of the Aurora's Reach tallied their losses, the weight of what they had endured began to settle in. 2 members of the infiltration team hadn't made it back. Lieutenant Marcus Trent, whose quick thinking had crippled the enemy ship's engines, and a young Valith named Avon, whose glowing barrier had saved countless lives during the firefight. The silence aboard the vessel was palpable, broken only by the soft hum of the Valith's mournful lights. Dr. Ilara Voss stood in the lab, staring at the faint glow of Leor's tendrils. Even though Leor couldn't speak human words, its sorrow was unmistakable. Its bioluminescent patterns dimmed, flickering like dying embers. "We did everything we could," Ilara whispered, her voice trembling. But the words felt hollow. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't shake the guilt gnawing at her chest. Captain Rhea Callan gathered the survivors for a memorial service held on the icy surface of Cal 7. Under the pale light of the distant star, humans and Valith stood side by side, united in grief. The Valith honored their fallen comrade with an intricate display of light and sound, a shimmering aurora that danced across the frozen plains. It wasn't just a tribute to Avon. It was a thank you to all who had fought alongside them. For the first time, humanity witnessed the depth of Valith culture, their art blending seamlessly with emotion and memory. "We lost good people today," Callan said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "But we also gained something priceless, a bond stronger than fear or hate. We've shown the galaxy that compassion isn't weakness, it's strength. Her words resonated deeply, especially among the Valeth. Though they had been abandoned by their creators, they now saw themselves not as victims, but as survivors. Their trust in humanity grew even stronger, fueled by the sacrifices made on their behalf. When the ceremony ended, Lyra approached Ilara, its lights pulsing softly. It extended a tendril toward her hand, offering comfort, or perhaps gratitude. Either way, Ilara accepted it, feeling the warmth of connection even in the coldest corner of space. In the days that followed, life aboard the Aurora's Reach slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. The remaining crew worked tirelessly to repair damages sustained during the battle while preparing for the next phase of their mission, rebuilding the Valeth colony. With the immediate threat neutralized, the focus shifted to creating a sustainable future for both species. Ilara collaborated closely with the Valeth, learning more about their biology and abilities. She discovered that their energy manipulation wasn't just functional, it was adaptable. Together, they devised ways to harness this power for practical use, such as generating heat and electricity to combat the moon's harsh environment. Simple shelters were constructed using materials scavenged from the derelict structures, blending human engineering with Valeth ingenuity. Commander Jax Reed, who had initially doubted the wisdom of helping the Valeth, found himself profoundly changed by the experience. Watching his comrades risk everything, and seeing the Valeth rise to meet them halfway, forced him to reconsider his views. One evening, as he stood beside Lyra observing the glowing cityscape taking shape, he admitted quietly, "Maybe we're not so different after all." Despite the progress, challenges remained. Supplies were running low, and tensions occasionally flared among the crew. Yet every setback was met with determination. The Valeth, once fragile and dependent, now took charge of tasks suited to their unique abilities. They became teachers, showing humans new ways of thinking and problem-solving. In turn, humanity provided stability and resources, proving that cooperation could bridge even the widest gaps. As the colony grew, so did hope. The icy moon, once a tomb for a forgotten race, transformed into a symbol of resilience and unity. And though everyone knew the Empire might return one day, they faced the future unafraid. Together, they had proven that survival wasn't just about enduring, it was about thriving. For Ilara, standing under the shimmering auroras created by the Valeth, the message was clear. Even in the darkest corners of the universe, light could still shine. Months passed, and the icy moon of Cal 7 began to hum with life. What had once been a barren wasteland transformed into a thriving colony, a testament to the resilience and ingenuity of two species working together. The humans and Valeth had not only survived but thrived, creating something neither could have achieved alone. The Valeth's mastery over energy manipulation proved invaluable. Using their abilities, they generated heat and light across the settlement, turning the frozen landscape into a livable environment. Glowing domes made of crystalline material stretched across the surface, providing shelter and warmth while blending seamlessly with the natural beauty of the moon. Inside these domes, lush greenery flourished. Plants brought from Earth mingled with strange flora cultivated by the Valeth, nourished by artificial sunlight powered entirely by their energy fields. Human agricultural expertise complemented this effort. Commander Jax Reed, who had initially resisted the idea of reviving the Valeth, now took charge of food production. Under his leadership, hydroponic farms sprouted within the domes, ensuring a steady supply of fresh produce for both humans and Valeth. "Turns out farming isn't so different from combat," he joked one day, wiping sweat from his brow as he checked on rows of crops. "You plant seeds, protect them, and hope they grow." Meanwhile, Dr. Ilara Voss focused on education. As more Valeth were awakened, she worked tirelessly to bridge cultural gaps between the two species. Language lessons became a daily ritual, with humans learning basic patterns of Valeth communication, and the Valeth picking up fragments of human speech. Children of both species grew up side by side, their laughter echoing through the halls of the colony. They shared stories, games, and traditions, forging bonds that transcended biology. One evening, Ilara watched as a group of children played near the glowing dome walls. A young human boy held hands with a small Valeth, its tendrils wrapped gently around his fingers as they traced shimmering patterns in the air. "It's beautiful," Priya Patel remarked, standing beside her. "They don't see differences, they just see friends." Ilara smiled faintly, but couldn't help feeling a pang of worry. "It is beautiful," she admitted, "but we can't forget where we came from, or what might still come for us." Captain Rhea Callan shared her concerns. Though the Ecliptor hadn't returned, no one doubted the Empire would eventually learn of their defiance. In preparation, the colony fortified its defenses, integrating human technology with Valeth energy shields. Scouts patrolled the skies in modified shuttles, keeping watch for any sign of danger. Despite these precautions, the colony radiated optimism. Art became a cornerstone of their shared culture. The Valeth taught humans how to manipulate light and sound into breathtaking displays, while humans introduced painting, sculpture, and music. Collaborative performances drew crowds from all corners of the settlement, celebrating unity through creativity. One such performance marked the anniversary of their victory against the Ecliptor. Beneath the shimmering auroras created by the Valeth, humans and Valeth gathered to honor those who had fallen. Songs echoed through the night, blending human melodies with the haunting harmonies of Valeth hums. At the center of it all stood Lyre, its glow brighter than ever, symbolizing the bond between the two species. As the celebration ended, Captain Callan addressed the crowd. "We've built something extraordinary here," she said, her voice filled with pride. "But our journey doesn't end here. Together, we'll keep building, not just for ourselves, but for everyone who believes in hope." For the first time since arriving on Cal 7, the crew of the Aurora's Reach felt truly at home. The icy moon was no longer a place of exile. It was a beacon of possibility. And though challenges lay ahead, they faced them unafraid, knowing they weren't alone. In the quiet moments afterward, Ilara stood beside Lyre, gazing at the glowing cityscape. "This is just the beginning," she whispered. "Isn't it?" Lyre pulsed softly in agreement, its light steady and unwavering. Years passed, and the colony on Cal 7 flourished. What had started as a fragile experiment in coexistence became a thriving society, a beacon of hope in a galaxy often defined by division and conflict. The humans and Valeth worked together seamlessly, their combined strengths creating something greater than either could have achieved alone. But as the settlement grew stronger, so did its desire to connect with the wider universe. One day, Captain Rhea Callan called a meeting in the central dome, where glowing crystalline walls reflected the soft light of bioluminescent lamps. The air buzzed with anticipation as humans and Valeth gathered around. Standing beside Dr. Ilara Voss and Lior, Callan addressed the crowd. "We've built something incredible here," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "But it's time we shared our story with the galaxy. If others can see what we've accomplished, if they can witness how two vastly different species can live and thrive together, then maybe we can inspire change beyond this moon." The plan was simple yet bold. Send out a message to the stars, an open invitation for other civilizations to visit Cal 7. Using advanced communication arrays powered by Valeth energy manipulation, the colony broadcast signals across vast distances, carrying images and recordings of their shared achievements. They showed glimpses of their daily lives, their art, their science, and most importantly, their unity. At first, there was silence. Days turned into weeks, and some began to doubt whether anyone would respond. But then, one evening, the comm system lit up with incoming transmissions. Dozens of replies poured in from civilizations, eager to learn more about the unlikely alliance between humans and Valeth. Some expressed curiosity, others admiration, and a few even offered trade or assistance. Among the responses was a delegation from a faction known as the Free Systems Alliance, a group that opposed the oppressive empire responsible for abandoning the Valeth. Their leader, Ambassador Callus Rain, arrived aboard a sleek vessel adorned with symbols of peace. When she stepped onto the icy surface of Cal 7, her eyes widened in awe at the glowing domes and shimmering auroras overhead. "You've done the impossible," Callus said during a formal welcome ceremony. "In a galaxy torn apart by greed and hatred, you've shown that cooperation is possible, even between species as different as yours." The Vailith responded with a dazzling display of light and sound, their patterns weaving stories of survival and gratitude. For the first time, they took center stage in diplomatic negotiations, proving they were no longer victims but equals. With guidance from Ilara and Callan, they demonstrated their unique abilities, offering solutions to problems faced by other civilizations. Callus proposed an alliance, promising resources and protection in exchange for sharing knowledge. The offer sparked heated debates among the colonists. Some feared inviting outsiders might expose them to new dangers, while others saw it as an opportunity to secure their future. Ultimately, the decision rested with the Vailith themselves. After hours of deliberation, communicating through intricate patterns and hums, they'd reached a consensus. Lyre conveyed their choice to Ilara, its lights pulsing warmly. "They agree," Ilara announced, her voice trembling with pride, "but only if the alliance is built on mutual respect and trust." Callus nodded solemnly. "You have my word. Together, we'll show the galaxy that compassion isn't weakness, it's strength." As the agreement was finalized, the colony celebrated under the shimmering skies of Cal 7. For the first time, the Vailith looked outward instead of inward, ready to reclaim their place among the stars, not as tools or victims, but as partners. And though challenges lay ahead, one thing was certain. The legacy of Cal 7 would ripple far beyond its icy plains, lighting the way for others to follow. Decades passed, and the icy moon of Cal 7 transformed into a legend whispered across the galaxy. What had once been an abandoned outpost of despair became a shining example of unity and resilience. The colony thrived not just as a refuge for humans and Vailith, but as a hub of innovation, diplomacy, and cultural exchange. Its glowing domes, visible even from orbit, symbolized hope in a universe often clouded by conflict. Dr. Ilara Voss, now elderly, walked slowly through the bustling streets of the settlement. Her hair was streaked with silver, and her steps were slower than before, but her eyes still sparkled with the same determination that had driven her all those years ago. Around her, children of both species played together, their laughter echoing under the shimmering auroras created by the Vailith. She paused to watch a young human girl teaching the small Vailith how to draw patterns in the air using colored light, a tradition born from their shared creativity. It's hard to believe this all started with one decision, Captain Rhea Callan said, joining Ilara. Though retired from active duty, Callan remained a guiding figure for the colony, her leadership inspiring new generations. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd left them behind." Ilara smiled faintly, leaning on her cane. "We'll never know, but I do know this. We didn't just save the Vailith. We saved ourselves, too." The colony had grown beyond its original purpose. Trade routes connected Cal 7 to dozens of systems, bringing visitors eager to learn from the unique partnership between humans and Vailith. Scientists studied the Vailith's energy manipulation, applying their techniques to solve energy crises elsewhere. Artists flocked to witness the breathtaking displays of light and sound, incorporating them into performances that spread stories of unity far and wide. But perhaps the greatest legacy was the way the colony inspired others. News of Cal 7 reached oppressed peoples throughout the galaxy, giving them courage to fight for their own freedom. Diplomats cited it as proof that cooperation could overcome even the deepest divides. And though the Empire still loomed in the background, its influence waned as more civilizations rejected its cruel ways. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the settlement, Ilara found herself sitting beside Lyre near the edge of the colony. The Vailith's lights pulsed softly, dimmer now with age, but still warm and steady. It had been there since the beginning, a silent companion through every triumph and trial. You trusted us when no one else did, Ilara said quietly, reaching out to touch its tendril. And because of you, we built something extraordinary. Lyre hummed softly, its glow brightening briefly, as if to say thank you. Nearby, a group of children gathered around an older Violet storyteller, listening intently as it wove tales of survival and friendship using intricate patterns of light. One child, a curious human boy, tugged at Ilara's sleeve. "Dr. Voss," he asked, his voice filled with wonder, "what happens next?" Ilara chuckled, patting his head. "That's up to you," she replied, gesturing toward the glowing cityscape stretching across the horizon. "This is your home now, your story. And if you carry the lessons we've learned here, if you keep believing in hope, then anything is possible." As the stars emerged above Cal 7, their light mingled with the auroras dancing overhead. Somewhere among them, ships carried the colony's message to distant worlds, planting seeds of change in hearts and minds across the galaxy. The journey wasn't over. It might never be. But the foundation had been laid. For the first time in centuries, the Valith looked to the future not with fear, but with confidence. Humanity, too, had rediscovered its capacity for compassion and collaboration. Together, they stood as proof that even in the darkest corners of the universe, light could shine and endure. And so, beneath the endless skies of Cal 7, the legacy of hope lived on, carried forward by those who dared to dream of a better tomorrow.